What we do want to do is to give you the skills, the knowledge and the capability, the confidence and the motivation to give it a real crack.
Happy to work with two titans of the startup industry.
Love that.
What an amazing thing to say.
And it's that little bit of hope, I guess, that's out there in the marketplace that many people want to grab hold of.
Episode 78, talking business futures and education with Jen and Tony from the Pop-Up Business School. You're tuned into Twice, which is talks with innovators, creatives and enterprises. I'm David Binstead. It's a sad but true state of affairs that most new businesses fail within the first 18 months. Alongside that, economic inequality is affecting more and more people unable to afford the basics of food, shelter and warmth. So you'd think that setting up a free-to-attend business school, helping people get started with their own small business ideas, would be a non-starter. This is an episode about someone who has done just that, launching the Pop-Up Business School Aotearoa for anyone who wants to learn the key skills for getting an idea off the ground, and all for no course cost. And while I chat with Tony and his colleague Jen, you'll notice a lot of talk about sparking hope, building confidence and creating community. My first guest is a mindfulness trainer, arts, dog and yoga lover, and also Europhile traveller. As facilitator and Marcoms for Pop-Up Business School, she's all about supporting people to thrive and flourish, next to being co-lead for the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards and founder of Gen Y Coaching and Mentoring Insights. From University of Otago, via Outward Bound and many other past and current professional roles. I'm pleased to welcome the ever-optimistic and self-described, wait for it, outdoor Kiwi Disney princess, Jennifer Young.
It's great to be here. Thanks, David. I love the intro.
Our second guest is a relisher of uncertainty. Tony Henderson Newport is an experiential startup specialist and measured risk taker, having worked extensively across tech, pharma and banking sectors. Writer, business advisor, board member and Toastmaster. He's an active charity supporter and fundraiser. Having dined with royalty, yet loving nothing more than developing and delivering the Pop-Up Business School to help people set up a business for free. With the ability and superpower to make ideas real, I'm really pleased to welcome Tony Henderson Newport.
Thank you, David.
So how are we both today?
Really good. Really excited for being out at Kapiti and from next Monday for the next 2 weeks, delivering the next Pop-Up Business School.
Yeah, same. Just enjoying the moment, spending the time with Gen Y and yourself, David. This is one of those little sanity moments.
Talk a little bit a bit more about yourselves, but maybe let's just start off and start unpacking by what is the Pop-Up Business School?
So the Pop-Up Business School is a 10-day intensive where the attendees, who can come for free, go through 20 workshops in 10 days. And the workshops cover the generics, important generics that help people to start their business, but also to learn all the aspects that you can start a business for free. And there's an amazing misconception out there that starting a business can be an incredibly expensive and stressful exercise. In fact, the more entrepreneurs that you talk to that do what they love and are passionate about what they do, they find it is easier to get out of the bed in the morning. And so that Pop-Up Business School is about changing lives through small business. And the real investment for the attendees is finding that 10 days. And it's the local councils and local government and corporates that make it possible for those attendees to come for free.
You started the first course last spring, didn't you?
In October last year, we were in Parua, and the exciting journey around that was that Jennifer Young, Gen Y, was an attendee and now an alumni of the Pop-Up Business School and now working with the Pop-Up Business School. How cool is that? And I think that creates the opportunity for people who don't see where the journey's going to go to recognise that there is a journey, and being actually on the journey, taking the next step towards whatever your dream, your passion or your vision is. That's where it comes together. But you're quite right. In the background is all this energy that goes into, in a powerful way, working with the council. and if I use Pararua, Whanganui, Upper Hutt, and now Kapiti as examples of that, there's 2 months of promotion, and then 10 days of delivery, and then another 2 months of transferring our alumni into a sustainable support community. And it's that I think makes the overall difference, but it's also something that is welcomed by the local councils that we work with. Because it's not like you come for 10 days and then drop off the planet. It's always got to be more than that.
Wow, continuity? What are you talking about, man?
Honestly, I think it's one of the key things that sets the pop-up business school apart. So I've worked in leadership development, learning and development, and instructional design over the last few years, and learned a lot about courses and best practice learning, and the fact that the pop-up business school goes to local councils and local economic development agencies and organisations to make it affordable for people who may or may not have lost a hope of creating a life that they really love, or they want to create this amazing business idea or grow this business that they've got already, making it really practical, giving them practical tools. A lot of them are free or cost only very little money. So it's, what can the everyday person learn? And it's, the support after the program as well. We've got this awesome Facebook group that we post in on a regular basis. There's lots of sharing about, what are the things that you're having trouble with at the moment? Where do you need support? How can we connect you? It's best practice, really.
You say it's for anybody that wants to start a business. Is it really anybody? Or do you find that you're focusing on either specific sectors or certainly geographies in terms of people that are councils that are helping fund the courses that you're running?
It's a really good question, and it's one that does pop up now and then. I think.
Excuse the pun, sir.
Yes, true. A really good example would be that the pop-up business school is open to all ethnicity, to all gender. There's no exclusion for age. And what I find out of that, which is incredibly encouraging, is that if you have that business idea, you turn up. But it's the turning up that makes the difference, because you've made that first step on what could be a life-changing experience. If I think about Pararua as an example, it was our first one in New Zealand, and yet over 50% of the attendees were Maori and Pacifica. And we had huge support from Te Puna Kākari, the Ministry for Maori Development, when we were in Whanganui. Te Manao Atatu, the Maori Development Network in Whanganui, they were huge supporters. And I think what we're seeing generally is that it's the way that people can get involved to help other people to create a vision and a dream for something that they always wanted to make real, but never thought they would get a chance to do that.
This kind of view that opportunity is equal for all, but we know really quickly that's not the case. It's almost white privilege, for want of a better word, says everyone's got the same opportunity because they can't see any different. And yet some of the areas, having looked at the UK pop-up business school, which I'll talk about in a minute, is they're working in some very less well-off communities with people who have to fight even to get a basic education. Agree? Disagree?
No, totally. And in fact, what drew me to the pop-up business school was a expose on the UK pop-up business school, where there was a profile on a Caribbean lady called Dolores. And Dolores was a pensioner, and her whole life she believed that she could earn a living from her baking cakes and pies and savouries. And I remember watching the video, and this is 6 months after she had attended the pop-up business school in Reading in the UK. And at the time when she was interviewed, she was just employing her first apprentice. And I couldn't help but think, how many Doloreses are there in New Zealand who just want that chance? And it inspired me and drove me really just to do whatever it took to bring the pop-up business school to New Zealand for the lives that it could change here.
How did the two of you get involved professionally with each other?
Well, funnily enough, Tony and I met when I was in my first ever job out of university. I was working as a human resources advisor at the Leadership Development Centre in the public sector. And Tony got introduced to me and we hit it off. And so he started inviting me to, I think it was the Victoria Entrepreneurial Bootcamp. And I think that was really the first taste that I got of this entrepreneurial world and creating something. And because I thought that was totally out of reach, I thought that was way too hard. It would cost lots of money, that I'd never have the time to do it. Who was I to create something of my own? And then fast forward, I think it was about almost 2 years after having a few more working experiences and really getting more clarity about what it was that I wanted to do and what kind of impact I wanted to make and the people that I wanted to serve and work for and with. And I ended up getting recommended to go on the pop-up business school by a mentor of mine. And she was like, oh, you have to meet this guy, Tony Henderson Newport. And I was like, hold on. I met this guy like 2 years ago in my first job. And I went on it and I was just blown away by the quality of the content of the course and how practical it was. And it consistently kept pushing me outside my comfort zone, but also in a really supportive way. And the people that went on it, just hearing their stories, their journeys, and seeing how inclusive the course is. Like, it's really family friendly. Like, if people have kids, they can bring them along. It really wants to make sure that people can come along, making it more, like what you were saying with the equal employment opportunity or the equal opportunities. It really does its best to make that a reality for people.
Your perspective, Tony?
All those months and months and months ago, blending into years, I remember sitting down with Jen and connecting with her at that time when she was involved in leadership. And then she started to go out on her own, and I remember we caught up for a coffee at the Mojo, actually down on the waterfront. And then Jen turned up in the pop-up business school, and I was going, how cool is this? And this is our original one. The first in New Zealand, the big risk from one of the councils, Pararua in this case, Mayor Mike Tana and his economic development team, and then bringing in some other sponsors like Reader, and to make it happen, and also Te Puna Kokiri. So out of all of that, Jen was in the middle of it and figuring out what her business would look like and how she would grow that and interacting with the others. And then the interesting thing was, for me, the business that Jen was growing at the time was all about mindfulness. And that also gets a little bit in my face as a founder to be aware of my mindfulness. So between Anna Watson, who was co-facilitating with me, and Jen Y, there was no way I was going to avoid mindfulness as part of my going forward strategy. And then Jen did something really fascinating, and it's something that we talk about in the Pop-Up Business School. And it's about what I would call the hustle. Hey, Tony, I would love to be more involved. What can I do to help? Silence for a little while, come back a week or so later, and hey, let's have a coffee. Love to talk about what you're up to. And then out of that came the opportunity for Jen to carry out some of our social media engagement work. And then out of that came the opportunity to be involved in facilitating part of our course, which is around social media. And also then, by then, I'm also in the mode of thinking about the new facilitator pool that we want to create nationally. And again, the little hustle on the side meant that Jen was consciously, call it a mindful hustle now.
I like it.
It's quite cool,
mindful
isn't
hustle.
it? Mindful hustle.
Trademark that one.
Yeah, and now in the Kapiti Pop-Up Business School, Jen will be co-facilitating through the whole 2 weeks with me.
Where do you think the Pop-Up Business School fits into the future of education?
I also contract into Victoria University, working with their young entrepreneurs in their master's course and also on their bootcamp. And I noticed that there is a growing raft of millennials, if you like, that are wanting to be in the entrepreneurial space. How do they stretch themselves? But actually, it's a much wider raft of education. I met with Kendall Flutie earlier today, and I know her through Banker. The interesting thing for me is that she is bringing an ability for primary school children to learn more about finance in business through the education curriculum. And I think there is a growing need for our youth today to recognise that there is a wider opportunity for impacting their lives, the community and the economy through the opportunity for small business. But it doesn't just end there. If I think about the community that we have now, so that's the future of education. But what about the people that are retired or made redundant in their 40s and 50s and they want to re-educate? Where's the future? Where's the future for them, and how do they easily interact into an environment where they want to be their own boss? They don't want to be made redundant again. I know about this, given that in my time in the UK over 14 years, I was made redundant 3 times. So I know what it's like to be in between contracts or in between roles and to be at the whim of an employer at the point when they need to do a restructure. So I think the future of education is quite broad, and while we tend to look at our youth and who's in school now, I think we should also be looking at the re-education process that's available post-school to our 30-somethings, 40-somethings, 50-somethings that actually want to make a difference to their lives and to the economy.
It's David here, with a very special invitation over halfway into my chat about business for all with Jen and Tony from Pop-Up Business School. I'm inviting expressions of interest for future co-hosts like Caitlin, Jen, Rebecca and Jack have been in the last year. I especially want to encourage women and others underrepresented in the media to get in touch. Reach out via any of the channels mentioned in a moment. It'll be especially useful if you're Wellington based. My goal for this show, talking with innovators, creatives and enterprises, is capturing and amplifying the positive dents people are making on society by sharing tightly edited stories, learns and journeys to now. Send us your show feedback and comments, future guest suggestions and co-hosting expressions of interest via twicepodcast.com/contact and on Twitter and Instagram @twicepodcast. You can also connect with me on Twitter @David_Binstead. So let me hit you with a hard question then. The majority of small businesses fail in the first year or 18 months. How do you deal with that?
Well, the interesting thing for me is that if you don't give it a go, you don't know. If I take Kendall Flutie's example with Banker was her 3rd shot at having a business. The opportunity that we have when we start a business is to learn a whole set of new skills, knowledge, and gain experience, because it might mean that we have to pivot, which is a business term about changing direction. If the first idea doesn't work, that doesn't mean that we personally are a failure, that we have made so many bad mistakes that we don't have the capability. All it means is that particular business idea didn't work. And sure, we make no guarantees in the Pop-Up Business School that you're going to be successful first time. What we do want to do is to give you the skills, the knowledge and the capability, the confidence and the motivation to give it a real crack. And out of that, opportunity will occur. And then with that opportunity, that business owner gets a chance to respond in a way that works best for them, for their family, for their personal circumstances. But if it doesn't work, part of our job is to help resilience for that business owner, that budding entrepreneur, to be a lot more resilient when the bad times hit.
And adding on to that, one of the key things that the Pop-Up Business School teaches is about consistent action. So one of Tony's key catchphrases, which has become one of my key mantras that I really live by now, is a little bit and often. So it's really giving not just like a whole set of tools and practical tips. It's that consistent action and really getting people to think it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Published is better than perfect.
Let's talk about emotions for a second. Because doing a little bit of background before our conversation, one of the things that really struck me was that part of the role and the product of the Pop-Up Business School, is to kind of sell hope. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I think if I go back to the Dolores example from the UK, if I think about Gen Y, and if I think about Lee or Lou in Upper Hutt, if I think about Nareta in Whanganui, and go back to Esther and the Tapunis in Pororua, they all have an idea or a dream, some in different varying stages, but actually it's and you call it hope. And maybe it is hope, but it's that chance to take things to the next level. I always remembered David Dyer, who was on the Pop-Up Business School in Pororua, and he said, which is another phrase that we will use forever, at some point you've got to stop cutting bait and go fishing. And if you're cutting bait your whole life, you don't really get the opportunity that exists to catch fish. And that fish could be a customer or another sale or another customer that can grow your business in a more powerful and empowering way.
Talk to me about some of the other emotions, either that you were trying to instill in people, but also that you experience in running the courses, just from your own personal perspectives.
I think I'll take this one. I think confidence is a really big one. So we say that, you can have all the skills, you can have the most amazing idea, you can have, the whole amazing team around you, but unless you've got the right mindset, unless you've got the confidence to really make it a reality, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I echo that. And it applies no differently to us in the Pop-Up Business School. So we have an alumni lead in Whanganui, Pororua and Upper Hutt. And the other thing I want to mention briefly is that within the Pop-Up Business School, we have a slightly different community. An example for me is that we have a think tank. And I'm incredibly grateful for a group of people who have put their hand up and said, hey, we would love to be a supportive team to what you're growing.
Tony went on to talk a bit about some of the diverse advisory group who are helping him shape and improve the work he's delivering in New Zealand. He started out naming people like Guy Ryan, Mavis Mullins, Robette Hollis, Melissa Clark-Reynolds and Anna Watson, some of whom have featured as past show guests. If someone's listening to this and thinking, I want to get myself a bit of that, how do they go about getting on a future course?
The website would be by far the easiest way, popupbusinessschool.nz, and have a look and see where we're going to be and connect with us. Email, phone, all the contact details are on the website. And I think our call to action is if you do have an idea, if you do have a concept, if you want to take a chance, if you want to find out some more, then give it a go. Have a crack. If I quote David again and just say, sometime you've got to stop cutting bait and go fishing. If that's you, if that resonates with you, and it's most probably a male metaphor, but hopefully our female audience will get that guidance and say, you know what, I want to come along. And can I just make another little note? So far, in every pop-up, 70% of our attendees have been women. And I'm again grateful that our economy and our lifestyle and our way of being in New Zealand and absolutely supports that gender equality for creating a business.
All right, enough about work, business and starting your own business for free. I know what you really want to know is somehow these fine guests got to their here and now. We do that through picking over their old jobs. I want to ask you, Jen, about your first, your worst, and your best jobs. This is kind of diving deep about the humans.
Gosh, that's a massive question. First job, I was going to go and talk about working at Pumpkin Patch in retail, but actually my first job was with my family. My brother and I would go out to the orchard and we would pick the mandarins. We'd pick lemons, limes and oranges. And we, with my mum, who is much more at that stage artistically gifted than I was, created a sign and painted it. And it was our duty. We had to learn discipline to take the sign out, to the roadside every morning, put the fruit bags out, put the little honesty box, and then we had to remember to take it in at the end of the day. Otherwise, we didn't get our pocket money. So that was my first job. Worst job? Oh my goodness. Maybe 2 summers where it wasn't even a bad job. That's the thing. It was just very hot that summer. I was working at Mitre 10 Mega and having to wear polo shirts and long pants, and it was just very, very hot. And there was even one day where it was so hot, we were in basically like a tin factory where I was climbing up a ladder and got so dizzy from the heat that I started falling down, and one of my colleagues had to catch me. Life stories. Best job, hard one, because I feel at this very moment in time that I am doing exactly what I want to be doing. It's insane. No, I had this dream a few years ago where I put this intention out where I said, the work I want to be doing that I've always known I wanted to be doing is working with others in a helping and supporting capacity. So whether that's facilitating, coaching, counselling, teaching, and now I'm doing that. And I'm so grateful to Tony and the Pop-Up Business School for giving me an opportunity to really grow my facilitation capability and get out and meet lots of people, because the conversations that happen in the courses and outside of them, it's just mind-blowing.
So really no point asking you about your dream job then?
Kind of starting it and doing it right now. It's a reality.
Cool, living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream. I feel very lucky, working harder than I've ever worked before, and it's so worth it.
How about you, Tony? Your first, your worst, and your best jobs?
My first job was with Wellington Savings Bank, which doesn't exist anymore, and it was my first job out of school. And I was there for a few years, but it actually started a journey which would then move into accounting and then into finance and then into project management and business development and ultimately to the UK. So I think my first job was a stepping stone, as I think many things in life are. The worst job...
You can have more than one if you like.
Yeah. I think it was most probably... if I talk about the corporate world, there are some times in the corporate world where we encounter environments that are not culturally sensitive to the needs of the organisation, and I know that I found that a couple of times, once in the UK and once in New Zealand, and I'm really grateful that for me I was able to make a transition and a move as into a different world.
I then asked Tony about his best jobs or roles.
The best job is most probably what I'm doing now.
Oh, come on.
I know.
No way.
Yes,
Yeah.
I knew it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I have that opportunity to work with Victoria University, and I have this opportunity to work with people who believe in an opportunity in a landscape that they have never encountered before. I also enjoy the opportunity that there are a number of attendees that come to the Pop-Up Business School who have already experienced business or are in business but recognise there's gaps in their knowledge and they want to accelerate that business. And getting a chance to work with all those people, but the emotional level is about how do you change your mindset. The knowledge level is really the hard facts around tax and sales numbers, but the emotional one is what drives almost everything else. And I love that we get a chance to work with that element during the whole of the course. Yeah, I think I'm feeling very, very grateful for the opportunity to work with people that we've never met yet.
Jen, if there's an object or item that has to be analogue, that you can't live without, it can't be digital, it can't be like electronic, it can't be a computer or your phone, but if you can't live without an analogue item, what would it be?
Oh, I'm going to choose 2 because that's the kind of person I am. I like to canvas this. So one would be my yoga mat, because being able to, it's not just good for yoga and stretching out my body and really looking after it, it's also practical for sleeping on. So airports or when I'm going walking or tramping, it's, multifunctional. And the second would be a journal and pen, because I have a highly active mind and very creative. So having something to download onto the paper, and just it helps me to work through things and get ideas down. It's invaluable to me.
If I forced you to choose one or the other?
It'd probably be pen and paper, just because it not only helps me to like work through all my creative ideas and ventures and helps me to remember things and plan things out, it shows me how much progress I make over time. And I think it's so important to really celebrate the little bits of progress along the way to, massive achievements, because so often we can get caught up in the big goals of, get a degree or finish this job or finish XYZ. But what about celebrating those little wins along the way and feeling grateful for the moments that are happening, those little things? I think it's one of the things that really helps to keep me grounded in this moment and not get caught up in the, but like what's happening next, or, further down the line. It's like, well, this is awesome right now, and I'm super grateful for that.
Tony, how about you? Analog object or item that you can't live without?
I'm going to go for, now I don't know if this qualifies, but it's called a motorbike.
I think we'll allow it on this occasion. I mean, it is mechanical, but it's not digital, to be fair.
Yeah.
So,
and it's definitely a 1966 Yamaha Virago, and it's the old cruiser style. And I brought it into the dojo yesterday, and we're heading towards winter, so it might not get out of the garage as much. But there's something freeing about being on the road with the wind whistling by and ending a destination, which might be a cafe somewhere, which I did in the last weekend, and using that opportunity to have some mindfulness time and some time out. And it's just a little bit different from the norm. And the other one, I guess, which will have relevance, will be reading and the opportunity to access a book. And there are a few books that draw my attention from time to time. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, all those years ago, was a highlight and an epiphany moment in reading about a book. There's the Bible, which has got so many amazing stories and resonates with me in quite a powerful way. And out of that, I can't take a movie camera or not a movie camera, a movie cinema.
You could possibly take a non-digital version, but then you got all this unexposed film to be messing around with.
And I was thinking about the cinema itself, so I could actually watch movies whenever I wanted.
What a greedy guts!
I know. You talked about 2 Gen Y, and I've got to 3, and I'm building up speed. But I am going to pare it all the way down to 1 because I'm going to get asked, and I'm most probably going to go for something that I can read. And the chances are high it'll be the Bible, and it'll be Time Out. Yep.
Where can people reach out to you online?
Absolutely. So they are welcome to check out www.genyinsights, so GENYINSIGHTS.com, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as Jennifer Young. I'm really active on social media channels. At the moment, I'm posting daily about Mindful May, so about little tips and tricks I've learned about mindfulness and self-care that have really helped me get through some more challenging times and have made me more resilient. So reach out to me. I'm pretty friendly.
Tony?
Easy one. popupbusinessschool.nz. And let me just repeat that. www. Actually, we don't really need to say that anymore. It's like popupbusinessschool.nz. And all the contact details are there. But also information about the courses, and just reach out and connect. That would be super awesome.
It's been really lovely chatting with the both of you this afternoon.
Likewise.
Learning a little bit more about Pop-Up Business School. Hugely valuable learns that you've shared today, but also best of skill with the course starting next week. Jennifer Young, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, David. It's been really, really fun.
And Tony Henderson Newport.
Yeah, thank you, David. Long-time admirer of your work.
Then a funny thing happened. Tony invited me to present a segment to the Pop-Up Business School crew about using audio to engage audiences, and I subsequently got to hang out with them a few days later. Here's some of their feedback from the first few days of the Kapiti Coast course.
I'm Kathleen, I'm nearly 70, and I am amazed that I am learning something to put into practice that I've always wanted to do.
I'm Sue. I'm doing a event instead of a business, but it will be run as a business. And the enthusiasm and the networking skills that I've picked up here have been superb.
I'm Tanya Cosgrove from Your World Interior Design. The Pop-Up Business School has given me the confidence to look into website marketing more and figuring out what my target market is.
Okay, kia ora. My name is Dolly Young from Dolly Young Counselling. I love the energy, but also the focus on support and community here.
Kia ora, I'm Rachel. I'm from the Connection Hub. Had such an awesome week. Tony's been inspiring, so great stuff. Come along.
I've really enjoyed the course, really enjoyed the opportunity to come along and be part of this, and I feel empowered and I'm excited for each and everybody here.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Sense of community. I'm really looking forward to collaborating with lots of like-minded people. So also, if you don't want to be challenged, don't come here. And you'll probably have some tears too, and all that's good. Fantastic, having a great time.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I am from Safer Kiwis, and my business is to guide small to medium businesses through the logistics of health and safety. I'm here on the Pop-Up Business School in Kapiti, and I have found it absolutely brilliant. The amount of motivation that I've got from the course to actually start the business and get moving has just been fantastic. The knowledge from Tony and Jen has been just phenomenal.
Kia ora, it's David here, rounding out my chat with Jen and Tony, recorded here in the pod cave at BizDojo Co-work, Wellington. The conversation continues after this short outro, with sidebars that didn't make the main 30-minute episode cut. It's frankly amazing that Tony has pulled off the immensely challenging goals of both starting and building Pop-Up Business School in Aotearoa, New Zealand. He's taken the concept from its roots in the UK and with permission and a whole heap of hard yards has launched a Kiwi franchise. From the first course last spring, he's been busy, mindfully hustling, as Jen describes it, to match sponsors and community and council supporters to deliver courses targeted to where they're most needed in some of New Zealand's unlikely entrepreneurial hotspots. Some of my highlight takeouts from this conversation are encapsulated in a few of their quotes. Having a mindful hustle sums up all that Tony is striving for, working as he does with funding partners to deliver courses across New Zealand. He's being inclusive, sensitive and thoughtful in his approach to equipping course participants with key knowledge they can apply immediately to this and the next iteration of their business ideas. Another quote that really resonated was to stop cutting bait and just go fishing. It's the most Kiwi of phrases, summing up to just get started. As the simplest of advice, is the fact that course practically delivers the trifecta of the right tools, the right mindset, and good guidance about when is the right time to get going with your business idea. And a particularly resonant one with me, published is better than perfect. Applied to business, it's all about going to market, validating your ideas and constantly iterating to ensure you're meeting and exceeding target audience requirements. Just don't get me started about how that applies to podcasting. The last summary thought I have from the episode is that they're educating people in practical ways to be more resilient for fast-shifting futures. A lot of the deeper discussions over the last nearly 3 years of shows have been about education and work futures, and Pop-Up Business School speaks powerfully to both of those. You can find show notes and links to the key topics covered in this show via your podcast app of choice and via twicepodcast.com. Episodes now include chapter markers, so you can jump to specific show segments precisely when they're mentioned in the conversation. Thanks to Marco Arment, renowned developer of both the Overcast and Forecast apps, for making that magic available to podcast producers free of charge. I'm grateful to 2 Wellington organisations for support to be building this show, and I encourage you to check them out. BizDojo are creating and facilitating communities where talented, interesting and clever humans pursue and develop their passions through a network of co-work spaces across New Zealand, which you can check out at bizdojo.com. Their goal is to facilitate collaboration in an inclusive, friendly and respectful environment. with flexible options for small and large teams and contract-free plans to suit any business. Go develop and deliver your purpose over at bizdojo.com. I'm also grateful to the Wellington City Council funded Collider Wellington programme, featured at colliderwgtn.com. Their monthly programme of largely free events is carefully designed to facilitate connections with thought leaders, emerging entrepreneurs and inspirational experts. You can access world-class intelligence, hang with some of the smartest people on earth and learn something new in the greatest little city on earth, Wellington, New Zealand. Visit colliderwgtn.com for all the latest details. Next up, we're featuring Jacinta from Dignity NZ, chatting about how her social enterprise is overcoming period poverty in New Zealand. Then, a special episode featuring Jason Pemberton and Samantha Jones, chatting about their campus starter social enterprise outdoors-based course initiative. If you're thinking of applying to be a future guest co-host, have a listen to episode 65A or B, where I sit down with my 2017 co-hosts and chat about some of the fun they've had in their last year with audio projects, including this one. Thanks again to episode 78 guests, Jennifer Young and Tony Henderson Newport from the Pop-Up Business School. Also, big thanks to BizDojo, Collider Wellington, our Patreon patrons who chip in to offset monthly audio hosting costs, and most of all, a big thank you to you for giving us time in your ears. It means a lot. Cheers. Talk to me about co-work. How do you find that?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I feel incredibly lucky to be one of the Biz Dojo sponsored residents. So when I started coming along last year around about November, December, I first started coming along to the Biz Dojo to the Toastmasters Club at Tony's recommendation, and it's just been incredible having that space to really practice my public speaking and get more confident with it and have such an amazing group of people around me who've become like a family to me. And then slowly but surely over the beginning of the year, the Biz Dojo were like, oh, we really like having you around. And I was like, I really love being here and I love helping people here and having conversations with them. And so they've brought me on from April onwards as one of their sponsored residents, and so I at times provide light coverage for the wellness program where I teach mindfulness and meditation classes. I have a lot of conversations with people in a coaching or counselling respect, and you will find me on Friday mornings from 9 to 10:30 at the Market Lane front desk, welcoming in everyone with my smiley face because I love it. Oh my gosh, I mean, like, Tony looks amazing for his age. I mean, who can even tell?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Jen. What's interesting, David, is that in the communities throughout all of New Zealand are the councils and the economic development agencies. And while we do a big shout out to people to come along to the Pop-Up Business School, it's really appropriate to do a shout out to the councils, to the local economic development agencies, because it's within their communities that are the people that will start their businesses. And you just never know where the nugget is going to form from, that one business that could change the landscape of a community. But as they connect into the existing businesses, it also changes and supports the identity of that community. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to do a shout out to our councils and economic development agencies that we would love to have a conversation. And it's in the same way that it's taken a little bit of time to bring on board corporates such as Xero and Spark, who make that difference by making it even easier for the councils to say yes. I really engage a conversation that would enable a pop-up business school to come to a community near you.
Always hustling.
Well, on the more practical sense, we have had participants who've come along to the Pop-Up Business School and they've been along on MBA programs and other postgraduate programs, and these are 10 practical days from 9:30 to 2:30, so it fits in around school hours, really family friendly. And for those who've been along to MBA programs, they've given us feedback that it's more practical than the programs that they've done. And another person who was a fellow alumni on the Aotearoa original pop-up school she said, it's a lifetime of knowledge, and I cannot agree more. It's a massive amount of knowledge and incredible content. It's highly valid and up to date, and it's just a matter of a little bit and often putting it into practice.
David, do you see this? She pulls out an envelope with a certificate inside it. She's like, this is the most expensive piece of paper you will ever see.
I feel that way about my law degree.
I'd also say probably Wellington's most fashionable startup entrepreneur.
Do you know what? I'm going to accept that with every breath that you use to make that statement.
Look at the old pink lining on the shirt collar. God, it's just level of detail, which is just next level there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, sir.
I love the way this conversation has gone.